Всем привет, с вами Энтони. Пару дней назад я попросил вас в Инстаграм задать мне ваши вопросы об изучении английского языка. И я собрал самые популярные вопросы. Сегодня, как учитель английского языка, я отвечу на эти самые распространенные вопросы. И я даю вам свои советы и мнение. Это видео будет на английском языке. То есть я отвечу на эти вопросы на английском языке. Но где-то здесь будут субтитры на английском, а также на русском языке. Okay, поехали. Okay, the first question is from Ev Orishko, and he asked me, индивидуально преподаешь английский? He asked me if I teach English individual lessons, for example, and the answer is yes. If you're interested in an English lesson with me, you and I, individual lessons, you can find my email in the description of this video, and you can send me an email and ask more information, and I'll give you all the information you need to schedule a lesson with me. So yeah, the answer is yes, I do teach English online individually. The next question is from Julia, and she asked, если уже знаешь хотя бы два языка, то следующие усваиваются быстрее? The answer to this question is absolutely. If you already know two languages, then learning a third language would be much easier. I noticed myself because I speak English and Spanish, and I learned French in school. After learning French, I decided to learn Russian, and now I'm learning German. And I noticed that the process of learning a language has become faster and more effective. So, I mean, I learn languages more effectively now than when I was learning French, because French was my first foreign language that I was learning. Now I'm learning German, and I found a way to learn a language. I think from experience, when you study languages, you already know what works and what doesn't work for you. So you implement that to learning the next language, and it makes the process much faster and much more effective. The next question is also from someone I think named Julia, or something like that. She asked me, правда, что многие англоязычные часто допускают грамматические ошибки? So, I gotta say yes. I think every person makes grammatical mistakes, even in their native language. Even Russian people make mistakes in Russian. And yeah, absolutely, my brothers make grammatical mistakes in English. I make grammatical mistakes in English. Everyone makes mistakes in English. And the biggest mistake that I noticed is with these words right here. There, and there. A lot of Americans don't know how to use these words correctly. For example, they would say, I am using their car. And if you say this, it sounds correct, but they don't know how to correctly write the word. So they probably use another word instead of the correct their car. They probably use there as they are and not there like ich. Yeah, so that's one example, and there are countless examples. There are many examples of native speakers making grammatical mistakes when they speak English. Absolutely. The next question is, раздражает ли американцев плохое произношение или акцент from я на нас? Absolutely not. I think that it depends on the person. Some people have a low patience. So for example, I noticed maybe in the airports, security at the airport, they have a really low patience. You want to explain something to them, and they say, no. So if you have a bad pronunciation and this person, the security at the airport, doesn't understand you, he will get frustrated and angry. There are such people, but most people are patient and they will try to understand you. That's why it's so important to improve your pronunciation. If people don't understand you when you speak to them, you need to think about how to improve your pronunciation. When I was learning Russian, some people did not understand me when I spoke Russian, and that was an idea, that was a clue for me to improve my pronunciation. So there's one thing to learn English, and there's another thing to improve your pronunciation so that when you're speaking English, people can understand you, and that's really important. I cannot emphasize that enough. Pronunciation is really important. Okay, very good. The next question is from Dead Elk, and he asked me, правильно ли это пытаться избавиться от акцента? Yes, I think it is possible to get rid of your accents, but not entirely. That's the big point I want to make, that you can improve your pronunciation, you can speak very well and really improve your accent and sound almost like a native speaker, but you will never sound like a native speaker. I'm going to be honest with you. You will never sound like a native speaker. If you are over the age of 10, 11, or 12, you will never be able to sound like a native speaker. That's a fact. I will never be able to sound like a native Russian speaker, and it's impossible. For example, I have a friend who was born in Mexico, and he moved to the United States around the age of 15 or 14. His English is fluent. He speaks very well. He speaks just like a native speaker, except his accent. He has a slight accent, and native speakers can tell right away that he is not an American. So that's just a fact. Okay, let's go to the next question. The next question is from Nikita. Что лучше читать, книги на английском или смотреть сериалы или фильмы на английском языке? Both are perfect things to do. The thing is, what is your goal? If your goal is to improve your pronunciation and listening skills, then I recommend watching a series or watching a film, because in the series, people will be speaking English and you will have to try to understand. That's really good listening practice. If you read a book, that's a really great way to learn new words, because you will read a book and you will read a word that is unfamiliar to you, and you will look up the meaning of this word. And that way, when this word appears many times in a book, it will slowly and gradually stick to your brain, and you will be able to remember this word. So both are great things to do. I would never tell you to just read. I would never also tell you just to listen or watch. I want you to do both of these things, and that's the key to being successful with learning, language learning, is reading and listening. Okay, from Alina. Прослушивание музыки поможет в изучении языков. Listening to music, I have never learned a language through music. I find it like, so maybe some people like K-pop. They want to learn Korean because they like K-pop, and that's their motivation, and that's great for them. But what I noticed is that the words they use in music, the lyrics they use in music, is not like the real world. It's a lot of poetic words that we don't use in the real world. So if you want to speak like a real person, not like a poet, if you want to speak like a real person, then I recommend you to watch movies and listen to podcasts. That's the most effective way. If you learn languages through music, it can be effective, but I think you will most likely learn poetic language, the poetic language, not the everyday language. The next question is also from Alina. She asked me, можно одновременно учить два языка? The answer to this is, yeah, you could learn two languages at the same time. The thing is, you need to have a high level in one language and a low level in another language. If you start from two languages at the same time, you're gonna run into a lot of problems, because since you're a beginner with this language, you're going to probably mix up the words, especially if these languages are very similar, like Polish and Bulgarian. You will accidentally maybe use Polish words when you're trying to speak Bulgarian, and Bulgarian words when you're trying to speak Polish. But if you have a B2 level in Polish, and then you start learning Bulgarian, you already know, your brain is already used to speaking Polish, so it will not use a lot of Bulgarian words when you're speaking Polish. So yeah, that's what I'm doing right now. My Russian is around B2, but my German is around A2. So there's a big gap between my Russian and my German. Yeah. Essa, she asked me, возможно ли выучить английский за полгода? And the answer is no. You can never learn a language in 6 months. Anybody who tells you you'll be able to speak fluently in 6 months is lying to you and is trying to sell you something. It's just ridiculous. It's a big fat lie that unfortunately a lot of people believe. But the thing is, to be successful with something, with any skill, it requires a lot of practice and dedication for a long time. So the reason why I speak Russian fluently is because I've been studying Russian for more than 3 years already. I started my channel when I was barely learning Russian. Learning a language requires time, patience, and dedication. It's not something you can do in 6 months. Even the most easy language for a Russian speaker, you won't be able to do that in 6 months. It might take you a year, but not 6 months. But again, it depends. Do you want to just chat, have a conversation in a language? In 6 months, it's absolutely possible to have a basic conversation. But if you want to have a real deep conversation like I had with Ian the other day, we were just speaking in Russian, talking about different topics in Russian. That requires a long time. You can't do it in 6 months. So it depends what your goals are. The next question is a really good question. I get this question a lot. As an English teacher, I always receive this question. It's the question from A. Masterkov. He asked me, какой регулярности в уроках лучше всего придерживаться каждый день? I think the best, for me, what I did is I learned Russian 2 times a week, because I learned every Tuesday, every Thursday, and I learned every Tuesday, and the next day I just focused on trying to memorize and remember everything that I studied on Tuesday. And then the next day I have another lesson, and then on Friday and the entire weekend I read, I listen, I watch stuff in Russian, and that's how I learned Russian. So yeah, I recommend you to do the same thing. 2 times a week is really good. 1 time a week, I wouldn't recommend, because if you want to be able to speak a language fluently, it needs to be something you do regularly and often. So if you can do it every day, that's great. But I just want you to read and to listen to English every day. That's something you need to do. Okay, from Malyesheva, she asked me, hey, какие фильмы можно смотреть на уровне А2? There's a really good movie called Up by Pixar. This movie right here, it's a very popular movie. It's a really good movie for people who want to learn English, because it's a very simple movie to understand. They use simple English and they speak pretty clearly. If you want to watch something like a horror movie or something more advanced, I wouldn't recommend it if you're at A2. So if you have an A2 level, I recommend something maybe like Disney, Pixar, something for children. That way they don't use these long and difficult words. They speak at an easier level because children need to understand this movie too. So yeah. The next question is from someone named Thompson. He asked me, сколько нужно слов, чтобы понимать речь? So this is a really good question. It depends what you are listening. If you are listening to a podcast about medicine, then you need to know a lot of words. But if you're talking about everyday English in the streets, in the stores, everywhere, just everyday English, then there's been research on this, and it shows that around 1,000 words, if you know 1,000 words in English, you might be able to understand around 70 to 80% of what people are saying every day. But I would recommend you to learn around 3,000 words. 3,000 words. If you know 3,000 words in English, I'm pretty confident that you will be able to understand people here in the United States. Vladik, he asked me, реально ли выучить язык только смотря фильмы? Well, yeah, I think there are some people who, I know some people who just watch YouTube and Netflix, and that's how they learned English. But I think the most effective way is, like I already said, is to read and listen watch something in English, but also read books, read text in English. So that's in my opinion, that's the best way to learn a language. That's what I did to learn Russian. That's what a lot of polyglots do to learn languages. That's what I recommend. So read, watch films, watch videos, listen to podcasts, listen, read, but you need to understand at least 70% of what you're listening to and 70% of what you are reading. Okay? So that's the most important thing. Огромное спасибо за ваши вопросы. Я надеюсь, что мои ответы и советы помогут вам. Если вы хотите улучшить свой уровень английского языка, тогда я рекомендую нажать на это видео здесь, а также на это видео здесь. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'll see you in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.